Welcome to Talking Bengals, a Bengals podcast made by the fans for the fans. Check out Talking Bengals on iTunes, Google Play, and Buzzsprout. Also follow Talking Bengals on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Now, let's join the conversation. Hello and welcome into another gloomy edition of Talking Bengals. After another abysmal performance, we have many things to discuss. Hopefully we can find some optimism in it. Nick, how you doing?
Doing good, Casey. Having a pretty good week. How about yourself?
Well, stressful as always, but that's par for the course. And, being a Bengals fan doesn't offer much relief on game day right now. So, I don't know. Just got to try to look forward to something. And last Thursday night was not it. I mean, that was just abysmal. An absolutely just terrible game where I don't know how many opportunities to win the game you need to have. That's what makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, how do you lose a game 13-9, but you had multiple opportunities to win that ball game? Your defense set you up with good field position, special team pinned them back deep. I don't know what more you could ask for. Nick, what do you think?
This week's game was absolutely abysmal. Multiple scoring opportunities, and we couldn't capitalize on them. Still not a single touchdown in two home games, where your entire team is supported by majority of the fan base. You have an entire stadium there that's rooting for you, and you can't even score a touchdown. Um, I mean, I can't remember how many times they're in the red zone, but they had ample opportunities. The one catch by Eifert, and he had stepped out of bounds prior to catching the ball and came back in. And resulted in a loss of downs. But for the most part, it's kind of hard to place blame on just one single person in that. To be quite honest with you, you almost got to place blame on everybody on the team.
It was like a Murphy's Law situation. I mean, it was just Tyler Eifert step out of bounds, people making bad plays, untimely penalties. And once again, Andy Dalton just couldn't hit a target to save his life. And Adam Jones didn't directly come out and say it, but he said the defense wins their part of the game, special teams wins their part of the game. You should win the game. So I think that was an indirect attack there at the offense, and rightly so. They were just pathetic. And we'll get into it a little bit later here, talking a little bit more about Andy Dalton and what's going on. But that's on the offense. You got to make some points. And when it comes to who's in control of the offense, that's the offensive coordinator. And that led to Ken Zampese being fired. But in my opinion, he should have never been hired as the offensive coordinator. I'm pretty sure I wrote an article about that saying, he's not the right guy for this job. There is better people out there. Why are we hiring from inside the organization? I don't understand it at all. He was never qualified for that position. He should never have been an offensive coordinator. So I just think, with how big of a failure it was, 8 quarters, no touchdowns on a team that is immensely talented, especially on offense. You have 3 quality running backs. Don't get me wrong, Jeremy Hill has his issues at times. Giovanni Bernard has limitations, but 3 very talented running backs. You have one of the best wide receivers in the league with A.J. Green. You have your number 1 draft pick who was the fastest guy ever clocked at the combine. You have Tyler Boyd, which I'm still not sure why he was inactive. I don't know if we just wrote him off and said he's not a good player after, 1 game of his second season. But I think he's a quality guy and can make an impact. Tyler Eifert, if he's healthy, should be making a bigger impact than what he is. It's just terrible. How can this happen to a team with so much talent?
You saw the Facebook meme I put on there. It's kind of like North Korea. You hear about all their weapons, all these big, magnificent weapons, but you have yet to see them all. And we have AJ Green, Tyler Eifert, Tyler Boyd. You have Joe Mixon, which we've seen a little bit of at least. That's like North Korea firing missiles over Japan. Um, I mean, Quite honestly, the whole time I'm watching the game, you give Mixon the ball, and they're moving the ball down the field. You give Mixon the ball. If the running attack is working, you continue to run the ball. On top of being able to run the ball, you're controlling the clock. You're controlling time of possession. most of the time, the team that controls the time of possession wins the game. I mean, it's a simple concept. In high school, I didn't always agree with what the coach did with always running our running back, who was supposed to be the star of the state. And every time he'd always run the ball, run right, run left, run up the middle, run here, run there. And honestly, to me, it just felt like he was just tiring out our running back, and our running back wasn't getting the deserved plays off that he needs. And there was just too much workload, but it worked. Our running back was able to make plays and be able to get yards. And I mean, honestly, junior, senior year, it worked out well for us. And I mean, looking at the running back scheme that we have now, you have Jeremy Hill, you have Gio, and you have Mixon. You have 3 running backs who are perfectly capable of moving the ball down the field. You have an offensive line who is unproven, who is very difficult at blocking. I mean, they are just atrocious at pass blocking. And I mean, at any given point in time, Andy Dalton is very close to getting sacked on almost every pass down. But the running plays, they don't look half bad. They look like they're moving the defenders out of the way. Joe Mixon's finding holes. Jeremy Hill is finding holes. Gio is finding holes. I mean, the running attack was working, especially on Thursday night. But what did we do? We went away from that, and we went straight into passing. And it was like a 1st and 10. Oh, wait, we got a first down on 3 rushes. Why don't we pass the ball? Not even a play action pass. Just go straight to a pass play. Not even a play action. Something's working. If it's not broke, don't fix it, is my theory. I mean, geez, Pete. More later. Casey.
Well, like you're talking about the running back situation, but I agree you have 3 talented running backs, but his biggest problem with Zampese's was if he was the one making the calls, which should have been since he's offensive coordinator, it'd be like Mixon had a good drive. Okay, well, let's put Gio in. Gio had a good drive. Okay, let's put Jeremy Hill in. You have to give these guys a chance to get going. You need at least 3 quality running backs to be a real contender in the NFL. At least in my personal opinion, it worked well for the Bengals in '88. But the running back by committee label that everybody wants to put on it is not the right way to do it. You have a primary running back and you have supporting roles. I mean, Jeremy Hill's your big guy. He can, it's that 3rd and 1. If they put Giovanni Bernard on another 3rd and 1 run to get stopped, I don't know what I'm going to do. That's a Jeremy Hill situation. He's that guy. He's your short yardage, get a couple yards guy. Giovanni Bernard, he's your change of pace back. You bring him in, hand him the ball a couple times a game. That way the defense doesn't think every time he comes in the game it's a pass play. But Joe Mixon should be carrying the ball the majority of the time. The more reps he gets, the more opportunities he gets, the better he's going to play. And it's just like you said, Nick, the running game isn't doing horrible. They're having some success there. And that brings me to, I'm going to try to dive into a point here. The biggest problem with this Bengals team is they're not playing with what they have. They're not utilizing the talent, skills, and abilities. And that is on Ken Zampese. That's the only reason, I guess Marvin Lewis still has a job is, you can blame it on Ken Zampese until, Bill Lazor comes in and has struggles, which that's his replace Zampese. We'll get to him in a minute. But Ken Zampese did not use the pieces of the puzzle the way that he had them. He wanted them to play like the 2015 Bengals when you don't have the offensive line to be the 2015 Bengals. You needed to have a more speed team, a team that, quick passes, people do quick slants, quick reads, quick screens, a lot of draw plays, and just a lot of misdirection. You have to keep people on their toes. You have fast, athletic linemen in Jake Fisher and Cedric Ogbuehi. You can't expect them to, sit there and pass block for 5, 7-step drops. You have to get them on a 3-step drop, throw the ball, 3-step drop, throw the ball. And if they try to do that right now with the way Andy Dalton's throwing, I don't know if they can be successful, but they're going to have to change how they operate if they want to be successful. This is a strategy problem. This isn't just one player. I know I'm pretty down on Andy Dalton right now because he looked abysmal and terrible and awful, and that's our buzzword this week, abysmal. So, kids, if you don't know what that means, go look it up. That's the buzzword from Talkin Bengals. There's your homework. But you got to say it's a flawed strategy right now. You're not utilizing the team the way it's meant to be utilized. And if you don't use what you have in a way that functions and will allow you to maximize your potential, maximize the ability you have to be successful, you're just wrong. And no matter who you put a quarterback, no matter who you make the offensive coordinator, no matter what you do, unless you just sign an all-star line out of nowhere, don't ask me where all these linemen have been, unless you can do that, this strategy is flawed, the team is flawed, you're not going to be successful unless you change what you're trying to do to accommodate what you have.
I mean, I agree with you, Casey. I mean, you're looking at also what AJ Green said at the end of the game. He's like, "Where was the ball thrown at in my direction? How come I wasn't given the ball? How come I wasn't given the opportunity to make a catch? I mean, you're paying me all this money, let me play." I mean, you have to agree with that. I mean, even though all night he had been double covered, I mean, he was able to make some catches. I mean, at what point do you say, AJ, do your job, get open? And Andy, throw it to him. I mean, for Christ's sake, the guy can get open in a phone booth. Throw it to him. I mean, you're not using players the way that you need to use them. I mean, like what you were saying, I mean, Mixon is an all downs running back. The guy can run the ball, the guy can block, the guy can catch a football and then make a play afterwards. I mean, what else do you want from Mixon? And then Gio is not a third and short running back. For Christ's sake, he is not a third and short running back. I don't know where the Bengals think they're coming from. For the past couple of years, they've done it. It really infuriates me every time they put Gio on the field and it's third and short. They're not fooling anybody. By giving the ball to Gio, you're not going to get the first down majority of the time. The guy is a small running back. He's an agility running back. You give him on a 1st and 10, second and mid to long, maybe a draw play. Pardon me, but you're not going to get him on a 3rd and short and get him to get the first down by pushing the line. You're just not. That's what Jeremy Hill and Joe Mixon's for. I mean, you have 2 power running backs and you have an agility running back who can do those zone reads that you want to do. Or, I mean, Zampese, for lack of better terms, was not our guy at the offensive coordinator position, obviously. But I mean, you're looking at like what you were saying with the really quick actions. 3-step drop and throw. You're looking at Indianapolis Colts when they won the Super Bowl. They didn't have the best offensive line in the world. I mean, you looked at what Peyton Manning was doing when he was in the shotgun. When he did those 3-step drops, he was making quick throws. He was taking all the pressure off of his linemen. And when you look at the linemen, you know what you got. You don't have the best offensive line in the league, and you're not going to this year. It's just a fact. So you got to do what a good quarterback does. You have to take that pressure off them. You got to get the ball out of your hand. Andy Dalton needs to get the ball out of his hand. Plain and simple. He needs to get the ball out of his hand to the receivers. If he can't, he needs to get outside the tackles and throw it away. Plain and simple. I mean, he's not going to have enough time every down, every time he drops back. He's not going to have the 5 to 7 step drop. He's not going to have the long ball every play. The long ball may be on a play action to Joe Mixon or Gio. But you're just not going to have that long ball the way that we've had in the past, because in the past we had a good line. We had a very solid, strong offensive line to protect Andy. Not this year.
And I mean, that'll move us into roasted or boasted a little bit, and this is going to be a longer, probably the longest roasted or boasted topic we've ever had. But should Andy Dalton be fired, Nick? I'm going to give that to you first. Roasted or boasted?
I say give him this game at Lambeau, see how he performs. If Andy Dalton comes away with minimal to no successes this week, he's done. Let A.J. McCarron see what he can do. I mean, you got a quarterback that you know that he's going to go out there, he's going to make some mistakes because he hasn't had the starting role. you know he's going to make some mistakes. If you're going to say this is a building year, at least you're going to have a quarterback out there that you can build with. That's fine. Andy Dalton, he's been here. He's done his thing. We know he's not, the best quarterback to ever play the game, but he's at least good enough to hit a receiver that's wide open. He was at least. But, I mean, like we were saying last week, prior to the game, Andy Dalton usually comes back after a really lackluster performance. Last week was the second lackluster performance of the season, back to back. Maybe Andy Dalton needs somebody to start in front of him to see that, hey, this isn't always your job just because you have the uniform on. Maybe that'll light a fire under his butt. I don't know. I think that it'd be a good idea to put A.J. McCarron out there at Lambeau. Who cares? He's not going to do any worse than what Andy did, for Christ's sake. He didn't. I mean, Andy couldn't hit a wide-open target. A wide-open receiver. I mean, there was plays where you'd have wide-open receivers, and Andy would just miss them. Like, not even know that they were over there. And then AJ Green would be running down the field in, like, triple coverage. It was like triple zone coverage or whatever. And he throws into the triple coverage with AJ Green. I mean, you can't do that. You can't throw the ball where there's three defenders and one of your guys. And, I mean, I don't know. I watched the game in its entirety, at least until, like, the I guess it was the second to last possession for us because somehow we got the ball back at the end of the game. But I was extremely, extremely disappointed. I mean, it was abysmal and embarrassing to watch. I mean, your second home game and you can't even move the ball down the field. I mean, you're in a 2-minute warning position in a possession. In the last minute of the game, you're doing your 2-minute drill. You're hitting receivers, and all of a sudden 3 downs in a row, you can't hit a wide open receiver. The third down, or third down or fourth down, he had a receiver that was literally wide open, and he overthrows him? Come on. I say one more week, and then you cut your losses.
I am so on the fence on this one. It's really, really hard to say one way or the other for sure. But I think when at the Bosa, I think he should be fired. I just don't think with what Andy Dalton offers and how he operates, what his game is, that he's going to be successful with this offense. Like, with what they have available, what they can actually bring to the table, what they can do to affect change, his game is not going to be good with that. And I think that's part of his problem this year. We're exposing this year the fact that when you don't have Andrew Whitworth and Kevin Zeitler and a good offensive line in front of him, he goes from being a B-minus quarterback, which is what he's always been. He has never been an A quarterback. Everybody thinks, franchise guy. No way. He is a B to B-minus quarterback with a good offensive line. And then if you look at it now, and he has a horrible, and I will say it 100%, probably the worst offensive line in football, he is a D to D-minus quarterback. I mean, he just fell off completely. And I know there'll be the people that love Andy Dalton. Well, you got to stand behind your quarterback. That's great. We have stood behind him through 5 playoff losses, through last year's, just terrible season when we're just blamed on injuries. And in fact, we lost a few guys. What's his excuse this year? You knew all offseason you'd have a terrible offensive line. That's no excuse for missing wide open receivers. That's no excuse for, just making bad decisions, throwing in a double and triple coverage. Making rookie mistakes in your 7th season is not okay. So I think it's time to just, at least bench him for a while, let somebody else take the reins. And, I mean, A.J. McCarron did make the comment, you know what, you got to just ride with Andy, fans. You just got to support us and trust what we're doing. Well, A.J., 2 things for you. 1, I do like that, you stand by your teammate. That's good for you being a good teammate. 2, you've not been a Cincinnati Bengals fan your entire life. You have not suffered. You have not watched the crap that we've had to watch. So when it comes to how fans feel, I'd really appreciate if you would just shut your mouth and go practice taking some snaps so when you get put in the ball game, you can be successful and give us a reason to back the team. Give us a reason to have hope. Now, while we may be the most pessimistic fan base in America, which Twitter polls show that we are, we do love our team and we stand by our team, or else we wouldn't be watching and complaining about it, how bad and awful you played if we didn't support the team. So AJ, maybe you should get ready, but this is going to be coming totally out of left field. Nobody else is going to probably agree with me or see it this way. But the best quarterback on the roster right now to play with this type of team that they have is Jeff Driscoll. He's mobile. He can throw on the run. He can actually run. He brings more athleticism to the game because both Andy Dalton and A.J. McCarron are pocket passers. Now, do I think Jeff Driscoll is, polished enough to play at this point? No. But if he was polished up a little bit, got a chance to play, this is more of his style of football. It's a run and gun. You got to get the ball out quick. You got to hit open receivers. You got to be able to, throw on the run, make decisions quickly, tuck the ball and go. And that's his type of football. He's not quite ready to be an NFL quarterback, especially not a starting quarterback, but this is the type of team that he could be successful with. You got athletic linemen who can run and get out of the way, but they can't protect you in a pocket, and he's used to living outside of a pocket. Nick, you got any other thoughts on that?
I think Driscoll would be a great spot too. You pretty much covered everything with him. Living outside the pocket, being able to throw on the run. Honestly, that's key to this team. Because if you take that 3-step drop and you don't have anything, you got to make something. Andy Dalton and A.J. McCarron are not going to do that. Driscoll may be able to do that. So why not give him a chance? Why not? The worst you're going to do is lose, right? So why not?
Yeah, so Jeff Driscoll, please get healed up quick because you never know. We may be calling your numbers, so we need you to come back as soon as possible off your thumb injury. But, so let's think of other mobile quarterbacks. And there was a rumor going around, Cincinnati lately. I've read a little bit about it and can't really say I'm super excited about it, but let's just, play into the rumor for a minute. Would Colin Kaepernick, geez, if I could talk, be a good fit, roasted or boasted?
I'm going to hate myself for saying it, Casey, but I want to say boast it, just simply because the type of offense that we were talking about with Driscoll. Kaepernick can throw on the run. He's a mobile quarterback. I think there would have to be contingencies in the contract in Cincinnati. I don't think Cincinnatians would fare well with having a quarterback that kneels during the game, during the anthem. I don't feel as though they would have a very good time with having an outspoken person with the type of beliefs that Kaepernick has. For the most part, he's made waves and headlines for the wrong reasons, in my opinion. So I think there have to be contingencies to where Kaepernick focuses strictly on football, opposed to off the field. He would have to stay quiet off the field, and while he's on the field, be an example for all of the Americans and everybody to be, a good football player and to be a good citizen of society. Somebody that you would want your kid to be. Like we've talked about multiple times with Adam Jones. He needs to be the kind of guy that you want your kids to look up to, especially if he's going to be a quarterback in Cincinnati. I think that, he could be a good fit. Like I said, I'm going to hate myself for saying it, but I think he could be a good fit. But at the same time, he'd have to stop all the antics for attention getting.
Oh, goodness. We got good roast or boasted topics tonight. I'm going to roast the fact that he'd be a good fit for a lot of reasons. I'm going to echo off of your concerns. But the biggest reason I have is he's been out of football for too long. He's not played, taking snaps. He's not been practicing. He's not done anything to make himself a good NFL quarterback anymore. Who even knows if he still is mobile, if he can still make those throws? And he was struggling in San Francisco and last he played. So I'm not sure if he would be a good fit. And then, you're going to add all the baggage with it. That's just ridiculous. I mean, you thought T.O. was bad when he came to Cincinnati, how big of a cancer he was. Let's add a guy who is on the leading edge of a social movement that is highly controversial, and not to mention spits in the face of, America in general. So I don't know if that's a good move. And I mean, he just brings all kinds of bad publicity and bad press. I mean, yes, would you have the small contingent of the population that's all about him and supports him? Would they all become overnight Bengals fans? Well, of course they would. But is that really who you want as the Bengals fan base? Is people who are only cheering for a team based off of a political agenda? I don't think I do. And like I said, the Cincinnati fans, if he was kneeling on the sideline and I was at a Bengals game, I'd get up and leave. I would just be embarrassed to be wearing anything else had to be involved with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I really just don't feel like his skill set's there anymore. You'd put him on the team, you'd start a giant controversy, and you'd be like, okay, he's just got to perform on the field. Well, he's not going to. It's just not going to work out for him. So that would be a giant headache. But the dumpster fire that is this season, why not? Let's just put some more gasoline on it. Why not? Just sign Colin Kaepernick, make him a starting quarterback, have the whole team just kneel during the national anthem, except for Tyler Eifert because he's already said he sure as heck will not. So, let's just go for it. Why not? Bigger dumpster fire. Let's just make it a whole, city dump with all the trash in the world fire. Let's just go for it. Why not? But that brings to our next roasted or boasted topic. Is there reason to be optimistic with Bill Lazor? Nick, what do you think?
Do I have to commit, Casey?
You do. You have to commit.
Ugh. I guess cautious optimism. Maybe boasted. Looking up for him. Um, I mean, can't be any worse than Zampese. I hope, but I mean, Laser's actually, he's actually been in our system, and he knows the plays. He knows, what the strengths and weaknesses are, and he's been the guy to sit back and to watch it. So, I guess optimistic. Casey, I'll let you run with it.
I don't know. I'm going to have to say it's got to be better than Zampese, so boasted in that aspect. But the biggest fear I have, he was the offense coordinator for the Dolphins. They let him go for, failure to win games and be successful. So we're fired a guy for not putting up points and winning games and being successful, and immediately replace him with a guy who, got fired for that exact same reason. So that makes me want to roast it to the fact that, he's just not – he hasn't been successful before. Why is he going to be successful now? And that brings me to my biggest fear of this entire equation. So immediately optimistic because it's not Ken Zampese. So boasting it. Roasting the fact that he's not been successful in the past. So that makes me on the roasted. And then the final thing that makes this an overall roast is the fact that Bengals have a terrible habit of somebody does good enough for a year that you give them another chance, and then it just goes downhill. So I think overall it's a roasted. I don't think it was a good idea, but it's the only option they had. I see where it comes from. You fire somebody in the middle of the season, there's not a whole lot of options to go grab and, work in a brand new system. So maybe using this system and try to adapt your strategy with what you have, change the scheme, but keep the overall, these are the plays, but this is how we're going to incorporate the plays to change them to make it work for what we have. So maybe, possibly, I don't know. I would always love to be proved wrong. I have nothing against being proved wrong when I'm being pessimistic about the Bengals. If I say he's going to be awful and he turns out to, just be a great offensive genius, he's the second coming of Sam Weiss and just makes things happen, fantastic. I'm totally fine with being wrong. I have no problem with saying, wow, I was stupid for doubting the guy. We won a Super Bowl. I don't think I'd ever be upset with myself on that one. I'd say, well, I was wrong, and we're okay with that. But it's just so early to tell, and I'm really hoping that, the next week when we do the show, we can actually have some positive things to talk about. Maybe a win, even though winning in Lambeau and you can't win at home against two teams that are questionable, I don't know. So, Nick, what are your final thoughts?
But partially, Casey, let's just say that no, you do not like to be wrong. Um, the only time that you ever care to not be wrong, let me rephrase that. That didn't sound right. The only time you don't mind being wrong is being pessimistic about the Bengals. Yes, that is exactly true, and you hit the nail on the head with that, Casey. I'm glad that you can self-evaluate, which is something the Bengals need to do. Is going into my final thoughts here. The Bengals need to self-evaluate, look at themselves, and understand that hey, we're not going to be able to make these on offense, have our quarterback drop back 5 to 7, and make these long throws. We're not going to be able to pass every down. Just not going to happen. But what we are going to be able to do, quite frankly, is run the ball. We're going to be able to take the counter plays. We're going to be able to run zone reads, kind of like our West Virginia offense back when they started with the zone reads. And maybe even bringing in Driscoll later in the year and doing some options. I think that may work into our favor, being able to do something like that. But final thoughts is self-evaluation, man. You got to be able to look at yourself and understand your strengths and weaknesses. And easy thing is to figure out what you're good at. The hardest thing is to figure out what you're not good at. Casey, I think you did a good job tonight figuring that one out.
So, what's your prediction against Green Bay?
Oh, the Bengals are going to lose 35-6.
Man, steal my thunder. That was close to my prediction. I'm gonna look not quite exactly, but pretty close. My final thoughts is: can the Bengals just pull a money ball here and figure out what's the problem? If anybody listens to us from the Bengals organization, which I don't know, I'm not gonna put my money on that one, but the problem is you have a flawed strategy. You have to change your offensive strategy to reflect what you have available. And you can't win if you try to play with a team that is no longer there. You have to play with the team you have. You have to make decisions that'll make you a more successful team. And the thing is, if you make a decision such as, not that they'll probably never do it, but if you put Jeff Driscoll in, what's the worst that can happen? You keep not scoring touchdowns, you keep not winning games, put AJ McCarron in, the same thing. What's the worst that's going to happen? You keep losing, you keep not scoring touchdowns. It's not like you're taking a step backwards. You're not being successful now. There's no reason not to take some chances, not to take some risk. And you're going to be playing a Green Bay team that just got beat by Atlanta in a game they really wanted to win because, that's Atlanta's, the king of the NFC right now. So if they could have knocked them off, that'd have been a big confidence boost, given them a lot more publicity, made them a more legitimate contender. And Aaron Rodgers also has a personal agenda to beat the Bengals because that's the only team he has not beaten in the NFL. So going to Green Bay, reeling, having, at least you had a long time to prepare for this game, but you have a new offensive coordinator who hopefully is not just running the same scheme, but I just don't see the Bengals winning this game. As optimistic as I'm trying to be, the defense without Burfict, I don't think they're going to be able to, slow down Aaron Rodgers enough to keep him from, doing something and stopping them. So I'm going to have to go with 31-7. I think the touchdown finally comes, but it's going to be a pick six. I think Rodgers has one bad pass, gets picked off by somebody, and taken back to the house. But the offense still just looks terrible. So next week we're going to be talking about will they ever fire Andy Dalton? That will be our question leading into next week, is what I'm going to predict now. But thank you guys for joining us this week. That's going to wrap it up for Talking Bengals. You can check us out on iTunes, Google Play, and Buzzsprout, as well as follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Talking Bengals. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully next week we can be saying a loud and proud, Hoo Day.
Hoo Day.